Let's take a look at some modifiers. They are kind of like these effects that apply to objects. If you go to the modifier properties and you open up the modifier menu, you'll see this bunch of them. And if you add the subdivision surface modifier to our cube, you will see that it already changes. And if you change the levels up to 2, you will see how that modifier is working. The important thing to know is that if you go to edit mode, you will see that the original geometry, as in the cube, is still there. That is because this modifier is not applied yet. So the modifier, you can actually apply it here. And if I do, and I go now into edit mode, you'll see that this is the actual geometry now. I'm going to undo that and get the modifier back and show you how it works to add more modifiers. So I'm going to add in a wave modifier. So the wave modifier is an animated modifier. So now you can press play and it will sort of play this little animation. And if you want to change this animation, let me just close the subdivision modifier there. I want to check the along normals and I want to open up the time and I want to change the time to 0.01. So I will slow it down. And let's just change the height to 1, width to 0.3 and narrowness to 7. And now to make it a bit more interesting, let's just open up the shading menu here. And I'm going to use a matte cap, a colorful one perhaps. If I go into edit mode now, you see it's still just the cube. These are just sort of effects that you can always go into and change the parameters. So for example, if I open the subdivision surface again and I change the levels to 1, you will see that now this has sort of changed into a much more simple animation. And if I increase the number up to like something like 5, you will see that you will get a lot more smooth outcome. I'm going to go back to 2 for the next step, which is collapse those 2 and add the third modifier. That's going to be a wireframe. There's also a really important part, which is the order that they are put in. You can drag and drop them sort of like freely by clicking that icon on the far right. And if I pull the wireframe to the top, you see everything changes. Because now it is basically applying or not applying, it's adding the wireframe first. And if I disable the subdivision and the wave, you see that this is basically the object only with wireframe. And then we added subdivision and then the animated wave modifier. But in this order, we first subdivide it and then we add the animation, which is like that, and then the wireframe. So the order of them is really important. And if I change the levels up, you will see that it will just create a more complex object. And you will probably, at some point, if you go higher and higher, like now my computer is starting to lag, right? And a nice trick is also if you, let's say, if this is the actual density that I want in my final render, I can put the render to 6 and the viewport levels just down to 2, so that I can actually see my whole animation, make sure that the movement is in the right speed and so forth. But then when I render this out, it will be more dense. So this was just a really quick and brief introduction to modifiers, and hope you enjoyed.